up in a moment with updates as of this hour on the situation. But before I do that, I need to be clear that even though this fire is under control, this site is still very dangerous. I need people to really stay away from this location. We have unstable structures and we are still experiencing flare-ups on the site. And so although it's under control, we don't want anyone to get hurt. So please stay away from the site. It is under control, but it is still very dangerous for untrained personnel to be there. Also, this is very important, if you have any information about the fire, video from doorbell cameras, home cameras, business cameras, or any other information, we are asking that you email that information to rfdfire@richmondindiana.gov. Again, that is rfdfire@richmondindiana.gov. Any info that you have will be of assistance to our fire department. This is normal with any fire, but we want to do our part to collect all the data that we can, and your information can be very helpful. The community helpline is still active and it is staffed 24/7. So if you're affected by the fire in any way, if you need transportation to a shelter, if you need transportation to get medication or necessities, or if you need transportation back into your home in the evacuation zone, please call the 24-hour helpline at 973-9300. And if you need more of that information, again, it's available at richmondindiana.gov. Today we had a large information meeting with all of these representing agencies. We had close to 30 people in the room. We are all communicating and working together, and we'll continue to meet regularly throughout this so that we can gather and analyze data. I'm staying in constant communication with our city team, in daily communication with our city council president, and met last night with members of our city council team, which included members of finance and public safety committees. They are aware of the situation at hand, and they are being great team members, and they are here to help us as we need assistance. There's going to be a meeting tomorrow afternoon to evaluate air and water samples, and from that meeting a determination will be made about lifting the evacuation order. We're not going to be able to provide a timeline about the lifting of that order until after that meeting, because testing agencies have needed adequate time to collect and analyze the data. That meeting will be tomorrow afternoon, and then we will share information about our next press conference after we get through that meeting and we can see the analysis of some of that data. I'm going to begin here with our updates from our representing agencies, and I want to begin with Richmond Fire Department Chief Tim Brown.
Good afternoon. We just came from the site. As Mayor Snow indicated, we declared the fire under control shortly before 8 p.m. last night. Under control does not mean that the fire is out. When we left the site shortly, right about 3:30, we did not have any visible smoke and we didn't have any visible fire. However, we're really sure that there are smoldering fires underneath the surface. So with that, we're going to keep crews on scene through the weekend to monitor any hot spots, any flare-ups, and anything that could pose a danger to the community. As Mayor Snow indicated, the site is very dangerous. There are large pieces of metal that are everywhere. There are structures that are unstable. As I said, there could be some hot spots. There are several gallons of water laying around on the ground. You might walk into a hole and you might go into your knees or to your hips with holes. So we urge everybody to please stay away from the site. Let us take care of it. Let us take care of the flare-ups, and everyone will be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'd like to next bring forward John Duke from Wayne County Emergency Management.
Good afternoon. My name is John Duke, Deputy Director of Emergency Management. First, I want to address the displaced residents. Sheltering is available. Food and meals are available, not only to the people seeking shelter, but just for the displaced. Meals and food are being provided by Bread Box and the American Red Cross. Sheltering location is Oak Park Pentecostal Church, 1920 Chester Boulevard. Next, I would like to talk about IDEM. IDEM is on scene coordinating with other agencies and working to assure the environment is safe. Indiana American Water is currently testing and monitoring the municipal water system. I've been in communication with them on several occasions. They have no evidence of contaminated water and are currently testing to monitor the situation. We are also working and coordinating with our Ohio partners, Ohio Emergency Management, and Ohio EPA. We are in constant communication and working together to mitigate this situation as best we can and as fast as we can. Again, I want to stress anyone or any of the displaced residents who need assistance or have questions can contact the Community Helpline, 973-9300. Thank you.
Thank you, John. To speak more about drainage from the location, I want to bring up Richmond Sanitary District Director Pat Smoker.
Pat Smoker, Sanitary District. The Sanitary District is continuing to monitor the river and outfall. We're continuing to collect what debris escaped the outfall prior to the setup of the weir booms. To date, no fish or wildlife kills have been found. We are still awaiting organics and metal results. We are hopeful they will come later today or tomorrow. We were sharing those with EPA and IDEM and the Health Department, and we will assess those results. We still have a standing order to avoid contact with the river until those results are in. Now that the fire is contained or under control, we are shifting our focus with the help of IDEM and EPA to how to isolate the site from future runoff until it can be cleaned. We have also taken additional steps now that the smoke and the fire is under control to minimize debris runoff until the long-term plan can be set up to completely isolate this site.
Thank you, Pat. Next, I'd like to bring up Jason Sewell from the EPA.
Good evening. Overnight, since our last press statement, EPA has continued to collect air monitoring readings around the community. As the chief stated, the fire was under control, but there are hot spots that continue to put off flare-up or small bits of smoke. Yesterday evening, with the weather inversion kind of holding ground smoke at the ground level, and with the kind of cooling fires and the continued smoldering, we detected some new contaminants right at the incident command post, which is, again, in the center of the evacuation zone. The two new contaminants we detected were hydrogen cyanide and benzene. We have not detected those before last night. The fire department jumped on extinguishing the hot spot, and that abated. We didn't detect it the rest of the night. We did continue with additional air monitoring outside the evacuation zone for the rest of the evening and throughout today. So to date, we have 51 locations around the community where we have crews that are visiting these locations and collecting a number of measurements. Those total measurements to date are up to 1,169 measurements. Other than the hydrogen cyanide benzene detections I just mentioned, the only other things we've detected through air monitoring are particulate matter, which again is to be expected when you see visible smoke. Outside of the roving monitoring, we have some stationary monitors set up at 9 stations throughout the community. At several of these locations, those stationary locations we're looking for particulate matter with real-time instruments. At several of those locations, we've also set out air sample collection cans that go off to the laboratory for analysis for volatile organic compounds. To date, we have results back for 4 such samples. Those sample results have been shared with the public health agencies for interpretation and to put into context for the community. If those results aren't up on our website yet, they'll be up there soon tonight. So again, we have 4 results back. We expect results for 6 additional samples first thing in the morning and 6 additional sample results by late on Saturday. So I reported, I can't remember now, maybe 2 days ago, that we collected a debris that had flown off site with the smoke and that had tested positive for asbestos. So yesterday, EPA mobilized federal contractors to come and help begin collection of presumed asbestos-containing material debris. We have crews coming in to begin collection in Ohio and Indiana. We're working with local officials to identify priority sites where we'd start first. We will be taking requests voluntary from residents if they would like their yard inspected and debris collected if present. For now, we're going to ask those interests to call the 2 existing phone lines in Richmond. One is for the Wayne County Health Department. One is for the Richmond, the Richmond, City of Richmond. They published a number. We'll start working to get a number together for Ohio, but once that's out, it'll be pushed up on our website and made available. I think we begin, we're making preparations tonight to begin collection tomorrow. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. The EPA has also asked for a local headquarters in which they can continue to operate, and through city and county partnership, we are providing them with a headquarters in the center of Richmond so they can continue collection and analysis of their samples. And they have let us know, Mr. Sewell was just speaking to you about the EPA contracting to pick those up, and if residents see those, they should call those in. They are also prioritizing schools and our public parks. So we've already put our park superintendent in contact with the EPA to report any materials so that those can be picked up off of our public park system, and then the EPA is reaching out to the local school system to pick material up from there as well. I'm going to bring up next Christine Stinson. She is the director of the Wayne County Health Department.
Thank you guys for all coming out. I know that our community is exhausted from this emergency, as are the officials. We've been working around the clock to collect and analyze the data that's coming in, both from air sampling and water sampling. I ask for continued patience as we get all of the necessary analytics together, and we are able to report back to the public the data and what those results are. We do have like they said, there is a meeting tomorrow of the health partners, and we will be going over all of the air sampling that's coming in tomorrow, and letting you know what exactly we're seeing around that evacuation zone. I will tell you, we man the community helpline, and we've had people call that has said that they were walking around in the evacuation zone, and now they're vomiting and they have a sore throat and their head is pounding. This is exactly why we set up an evacuation zone and are imploring people to stay out of that evacuation zone until that is lifted. Right now, there are still particulate matters, and that in and of itself can cause a lot of respiratory distress. So please honor that evacuation site. And again, if you're seeing or smelling the smoke, you're in a plume, and it's best to shelter in place or get out of the area where you're not smelling those compounds anymore. We'll continue to have that community helpline open 24 hours a day until it's no longer necessary. And again, I understand our community is exhausted, but we will continue to push through and get through this emergency with the most accurate information that we can provide to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I want to thank all of these supporting agencies that are here today. They've all been working very hard, just as Christine stated, to continue collecting and analyzing all of the information. But really the biggest thank you today goes to our Richmond Fire Department. The way that they were able to contain that fire to that site, they were able to save surrounding businesses that were very close to the fire site, and even more importantly, they were able to save a neighborhood that was right next door. And so what they did was tremendous, and so they are to be highly commended for the work that they put in out there and continue to do out there right now. That concludes all of our presenters, our information, so we will take questions from you. Just please keep in mind our time is limited because there is still a lot more work to do on the site, and I need to get everybody here back to work.
Jason, what do you say to people who, I know you're doing testing, want to know what have they been exposed to as a result of this fire?
Well, hopefully they honored the evacuation zone and had very little exposure. And so that's what I would say.
Are you saying, is there no risk outside the evacuation zone? What about people outside that half-mile radius?
That's why there was instruction to shelter in place or remove themselves from smoky areas.
That's still the case. How accurately are you going to be able to predict health risks and what those risks might be based on what you're able to gather?
So EPA doesn't predict health risk. That'll be a public health question. We'll collect the information and share it with the public health, and then they interpret it.
Can
recommend people-
Can you address that then?
Yeah, once we get all of the information in, both from the water testing and the air monitoring, and that is analyzed, we certainly are going to get that information out to the public of what are the risks if you have been exposed, if you didn't honor that evacuation zone. And so it'll be a realistic, you know, I don't want to frighten anybody, but this was a plastics fire, and there was particulate matter up in the air, and we evacuated a half-a-mile radius and had people sheltering in place. So we will go over, once all of the air sampling and water sampling are in and analyzed, we will give a realistic what you have been exposed to and what those risks are.
And that's for that evacuation zone, but a lot of people, as you said, could smell it even if you
Sure.
were a mile away. Are we going to know what kind of health risks they've been exposed to, and do you think that'll be accurate?
It won't be really accurate because we don't know the individual levels that they were exposed to. But we'll give a realistic, you know, what are the risks if you are exposed to benzene, and then that individual will have to then extrapolate from that. Well, I stayed in that for 8 hours or 24 hours, or I never evacuated. And they'll extrapolate from their individual experience what their risk was.
Beyond the evacuation zone, should people still be masking and sheltering in place? I mean, you're kind of answering it. None of you have a mask on, but are we saying everyone beyond the half mile is now safe to be moving about town?
I've always said, if you see smoke, if you smell the fumes, you are in the plume. So N95 mask offer the best protection for the public. Nothing is 100%, so removing yourself from the area is the safest way to limit your exposure from any of the volatile organic compounds or the particulate matter.
Where did this fire start? Which of these 3 addresses?
I don't know. That's not my.
Do we have that information today? I don't think we have that information today because they're still dealing with flare-ups on the site.
Was it 358, 310, or 308?
358 is what we were dispatched to.
The city owns that property. Who had access to that property? Was anybody moving around that property when the fire started? And was there anybody at the scene when the fire started?
I don't know if there were any individuals there when firefighters arrived. There were certainly no city officials on site.
We arrived on the scene. There were a few workers. I don't have the exact numbers of how many workers were there. As we were pulling into the area trying to make access to the fire on the one lane that we had, there were 2 workers coming out of there.
Does that mean a private company was operating at this facility on the day of the fire?
Yes.
On the city's property.
Yeah, as we explained yesterday, we were giving the business owner an opportunity to clean it up. And so there were people there. I can't speak to what they were doing, but as Chief told you, they were there when they arrived.
I haven't heard a number in terms of how many homes and people and businesses have been affected. Do you have a number on that in terms, especially that evacuation zone where people aren't even allowed to come back?
I don't have a number of the number of homes or people in those homes in that half-mile radius. I don't know if that's been tracked by a supporting agency. Do you have that data?
I don't.
We just know that we have a number of homes in the evacuation area and a number of people in those homes, but I don't think it's been surveyed in that manner.
Do you have a ballpark number, like a dozen?
I'm not going to
50 or
misrepresent the
any
information
idea?
by guessing.
And no idea on businesses.
If no one here has the data specifically.
To follow up on Brian's question, Christine, do you have a number of people who have been treated professionally for any kind of respiratory issues?
Okay, so I was in contact with our partners at Reed Health, who is the hospital here in Wayne County, and most of the physicians are affiliated with Reed Health. And I asked the question specifically, are you seeing an increase in fire-related illness? And they reported that they were not seeing any increase of any kind of fire-related illness to the hospital or at their doctor's offices.
So, Mayor Snow, for you, in terms of cleanup, remediation, all this, what needs done now? How much will it cost and who is paying for it?
That's what we're going to shift our attention to, but we just got news this morning about, as Chief just told you, about getting the smoke down on the scene and getting this down to just flare-ups. And that we're telling you now it's still a very dangerous site. So my attention has been fully on the safety of our first responders, and then getting the meeting held tomorrow to collect all the analyzed data to figure out when we can lift this evacuation order. And then our attention is going to turn fully to managing what the cleanup of this site looks like. But we'll be sure to share that with you as we move forward. Obviously, this is a very long haul process at this moment. We're not going to have every answer every step of the way. But I'm very, very thankful today. We had 2 firefighters suffer minor injuries. One was treated for a sprained ankle, as I told you. The other was overcome by heat, treated on scene and released home. That is something that we should all be very thankful for. This was a very, very large fire, and we were very worried about our first responders. We had police officers assisting as well. And so standing here today and telling you that our firefighters are safe, our police officers are safe, and that we were able to evacuate citizens appropriately and keep them safe, that's our story right now. And so we're going to finish this up on site and make sure that this is fully under control, get these flare-ups under control. Every time we see a flare-up, we see a little more smoke, we want that to stop. Then our attention can turn to how we're going to clean this up. But we want to get people back in their homes. They need to get back to their lives. And so that's where our attention is
I understand
right now.
that, but to my question, who's going to pay for this?
Well, as I've said before, the business owner is responsible. We provided all of the media with all of the supporting documents so that you can see that. And so there's going to be a lengthy process that happens for that responsibility, but we'll get into that at a later time.
How can the company be entirely held responsible if the city owned part of this property, including the place where the fire
it's documented in a court order, and so I feel like we answered that very adequately yesterday. I think we went to that in depth. You had the city attorney up here speaking to you and even answering questions. So, today you're getting reports from the EPA and the health department about the sampling they've taken. We have an important meeting tomorrow to determine the lift of the evacuation order, and that's really where our story is right now, is how fast can we get people back into their homes.
But sir, some residents don't agree with your assessment of the situation and feel that the city is responsible. So what do you tell them, thinking that if the city is owning this property, they should be responsible for cleanup?
The documents are public record. You can search that. You can see that. You can easily see the responsible parties, and that's how we're going to continue to move forward. We know who's responsible here, and that's how we're going to clean this up.
How much does it cost, Mayor, to clean up before the fire? And did the city ever explore looking at how much it would cost to clean this up before this happened?
We couldn't give an accurate number on full cleanup, but I can tell you it would have been in the tens of millions of dollars to clean this site
Did you
up
look into that?
previously.
You explored that?
That's not an official number. We just knew that from brief analysis that this was a huge effort, which is why this was an individual's mess that was made, and he was given unsafe building order and court order to clean it up, and was expected to do so, and that order was ignored, and here we are today.
Did you explore that possibility of how much would it cost the city to clean it up before this fire? Was that ever explored by the city?
We had filed for a grant for the start of the cleanup, and then started working with the business owner to start cleaning it up. So again, we explained all that yesterday. I feel as though you have all that information. I have to get these people back to work. I thank you all for your time, and we'll call another press conference when we have more information to share.
Mayor, he ignored this court order. Did you ever go back to the court and ask for the ability to do it yourself? Mayor Snow. Thank you, John. You said he ignored a court order. Did you